The morning my son told me, "It's time you move out," I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I had lived in that house for 32 years, and every nail in the walls had a memory attached to it. Yet he stood in the kitchen with folded arms, avoiding my eyes, as though the decision had already been made. He said the stairs were becoming dangerous for me. He said I would be happier somewhere smaller. It sounded reasonable, until I noticed the unopened property valuation envelope tucked beneath his laptop. I had never asked anyone to value my home. When I picked it up, he quietly took it from my hands. "It's nothing," he said. That single sentence unsettled me more than the envelope itself. For the next 2 days, he kept making calls outside. Whenever I entered the room, conversations stopped. His wife suddenly became unusually kind, bringing me tea she had never offered before. I assumed they wanted the house. The thought broke my heart. I decided not to argue. Instead, I visited a real estate agent while my son was at work. The market was strong. The paperwork could move quickly because the house was entirely in my name. As I gathered old documents from the attic, a dusty tin box slipped from the shelf. Inside was an old brass key wrapped inside a faded hospital wristband. Neither belonged to me. At least I didn't remember them. The wristband carried only one date. The same day my son had been born. Then my phone rang. It was the real estate agent. Someone had already contacted him about my house using my son's name. I signed the listing agreement that afternoon. If my son wanted to make decisions without me, I would make my own. The house sold within 6 days. I scheduled the closing while he believed I was visiting friends. Watching strangers inspect every room felt strangely peaceful. Then one buyer paused in the basement. He pointed toward a narrow storage wall. "What's behind that?" I honestly didn't know. The wall had existed long before we bought the house. After the buyers left, curiosity won. A contractor removed part of the panel. Behind it sat a tiny metal cabinet. The brass key from the attic fit perfectly. Inside rested children's drawings, a stack of medical receipts, and an old cassette tape labeled only with my husband's handwriting. I couldn't play it immediately. Instead, I looked through the receipts. Every payment had been made months before my son's birth. Different names appeared. None belonged to our family. I reached the obvious conclusion. My husband must have hidden evidence of another woman and another child. Suddenly, everything made sense. His long business trips, his secret phone calls, the hidden cabinet, the hospital wristband. I cried harder than I had since his funeral. That evening, my son arrived home smiling. "I've got something important to tell you," he said. Before he could continue, I interrupted. "I sold the house." His face turned completely white. Not angry, terrified. He whispered only one sentence. "You opened the wall, didn't you?" I expected him to confess his plan to take the house. Instead, he asked whether I had listened to the cassette. I hadn't. His hands trembled as he found an old tape player in the garage. My late husband's voice filled the room. "If you're hearing this," he said, "then the wall has finally been opened." My heart stopped. He explained that a young couple had died in a highway accident days before. Their baby was due. The child survived. No relatives could be found immediately. The hospital asked whether we would provide temporary foster care. We agreed. Months later, legal complications delayed everything. By the time adoption became possible, we already loved the baby as our own. That baby was my son. The hospital wristband belonged to his birth mother. The receipts documented the legal process. My husband hid everything because he feared someone might someday challenge the adoption and tear our family apart. I looked toward my son. Tears streamed down his face. "I found the cabinet last month," he whispered. "I wanted to move you somewhere safe before telling you." Then he revealed something I never expected. A woman had recently contacted him claiming to know the identity of his biological family. She believed the hidden records were still inside the house. The closing had not yet finished. We immediately contacted the buyers and explained that a legal family document had accidentally remained inside. Thankfully, they allowed us one final visit. The mysterious woman arrived while we were there. She wasn't a scammer. She was the retired social worker who had handled the case decades earlier. She had recently discovered archived records proving my son's birth. Grandparents had spent years searching before eventually giving up. She wasn't trying to take him away. She simply wanted him to know he had always been loved from both sides. Standing inside the nearly empty house, I finally understood everything. My son had never wanted my home. He wanted time. Time to protect me from a painful truth. Time to understand it himself. Selling the house forced every secret into the light. Months later, we moved into neighboring townhouses. Not because he pushed me, because we chose it together. The old brass key now hangs beside my front door, not as a reminder of what was hidden, as a reminder that love sometimes survives unfinished stories. My son eventually met distant relatives from his biological family. No one tried to replace anyone. Instead, our family quietly became larger. Looking back, I realized the greatest mistake wasn't selling the house. It was believing silence always means betrayal. Sometimes silence protects fragile hearts until they're finally strong, enough to carry the truth. And every time my grandson asks why an old key hangs by my door, I smile. One day, I tell him, I'll show you which doors are worth opening.